It's a good time to start. So can everyone see my screen? Just pop your hand up real quick if you can see it. Yeah, okay, I see hands up. Perfect. Okay, let's get started. So today we're going to do a sneak peek of the key features of Altium Designer 20. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. So what makes Altium Designer 20 different? Altium Designer 20 is a very unique release because it is the culmination of the intersection of three distinct initiatives. We're going to talk a little bit about each of them and why they are unique. So the first one is user focus, second, closing the gap, and the last one, long-term investment in R&D. So first, let's talk about our focus on the user. So I'm sure a lot of you have gone onto the Altium Live community. That is where we interface with our user community, and it allows us to communicate with everyone and actually be able to talk to people, right? So with the Altium Designer 20 release, we were able to address 5,000 different votes. Okay, and this is going to impact 2,000 distinct users. And this is actually addressing a 73% increase in total address reports, right? And not only is this new functionality important now, but these are cornerstones for future improvements. And one of the most amazing things is that some of these some of the things we are addressing are reaching back all the way to things that have been put into the ecosystem on Altium Live in 2012, right? So there are things we've actually been working on. And again, when we talk about long-term development, we're going to see how that all ties in together. So when we talk about closing the performance gap, you know, with each release, we've been focusing on one or two key functionality groups, right? The core of PCB design, we've made really big strides. You can see this graph shows the order of magnitude of the changes, right? The actual scope of the changes in each release. And you could see that in each release, it was pretty significant in one or two areas. But with 19, we started making it a little bit bigger. And in 20, we have significantly increased the scope in all core PCB design areas. It was really important to us to not only close the gap, but in certain areas such as routing, we are now an industry leader. So going back to what we were talking about, the user focus, we now have dedicated development teams for certain areas. The biggest one you could see is the routing capabilities. We have been working on routing changes for the last 4 years, right? There is a dedicated team that is working full-time on these routing changes. We've been seeing little changes every couple of releases, some glossing enhancements, different changes, improvements to the routing. And this is the first of many significant results to these changes. And like I said, being able to have dedicated development teams for different functionality groups allows us to not only develop the different functionality groups to a greater level, but it allows us to focus more on quality, right? It allows us to get to a new level of functionality and a new level of quality control. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these different things that we've developed next, but interactive routing and the schematic are two of the major ones that have been in development for quite some time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. See some people still raising their hands. So throughout this webinar, I'm going to be initiating some polls. The first one right now, I'm going to initiate one talking about bug crunch. So as I talked about our user community, you know, we're interested to know how many people have actually gone on and used Bug Crunch, reported bugs on Bug Crunch. So I'm going to launch that poll right now. So the first of these enhancements we're going to talk about is the user interface enhancements. So today, since today's just a sneak peek, we're just going to go briefly over everything. Next week, we will be having a webinar fully dedicated to the routing enhancements. So it will be a full webinar on that. If you're interested, I believe we're shooting for next Wednesday, maybe Thursday. We're still deciding on the best date for that. So just keep a lookout on that. And then when we have a full release, we'll have more of that. So I'm going to end this poll now. Let's see. Okay, so let's look at the user interface. So when we released Altium Designer 18, we introduced the properties panel. One of the biggest feedback we got about that property panel was the usability about it. So we wanted to increase that usability and further improve it. So what we have done here is gather feedback from the users on things to make it a little bit easier to use. Now we have incorporated things such as these push button filters. I've cut out a little area here so you could see specifically the parameter area of the properties panel. I have clicked out the footprint section, and you can see you can easily add a little area, and you can have all of the information about, in this example, a component in one centralized area to get it more consolidated and just have it be more context sensitive. You know, just see the information you want to see and just make it more, you know, just make it easier for your everyday, right? If you don't want to see certain information, you could get rid of it. And you know, you don't want to be bogged down by a bunch of information that is not relevant to you at the time. On the other side of things, there are certain actions you're working with often. So on the polygon pour side of things, when you're working with polygons, there's a lot of actions you have to be taking. At the top part here, I have highlighted, let's see, I'm sure you can see my mouse. I've highlighted actions you could take. These actions will be interactive on your board. You can re-pour things, you can shove polygons, certain actions like that. Again, being able to hide previews and being able to do more actions within the properties panel so that there is a level of automation to get work done on your board without actually having to change context and get involved with different things. On top of that, we have also introduced a way to better work with single items. So the properties panel is very good when you're working with multiple items, trying to edit multiple items at the same time. We found that when you're working with a single item, a lot of users were having some difficulty using the properties panel. So we have introduced modal dialog, right? Now when you double click on an item, you will bring up a modal dialog that has an interface like the properties panel, but it is now, it pops up around so that you will be able to edit the properties of that single item very quickly. Just click OK and continue moving forward. So now you have the option for single items versus batch editing, and it just makes it a little bit easier for whatever your context is to get things done. And you can see here in this picture, I'm actually connected to Altium 365, so I have managed components with Concord Pro right here. So you can see pricing information and different things here. So it's really nice how you can have all of that information in one area. So from here, we're going to talk about schematic enhancements. So as I mentioned when we were talking about long-term development, We've been working on the schematic enhancements for a couple of years now. The idea of compilation is pretty unique to Altium Designer because we have the unified design concept. The idea of compilation is to get a list of your components and your nets. What dynamic compilation now allows you to do is get all of that information automatically, right? You don't have to do the compilation. It improves a lot of the functionality that requires this. So now when you open Active BOM, I invite you to open up the mini PC example and just open up the mini PC Active BOM, and it'll open up in a couple of seconds. Cross probing between the schematic and the PCB itself. You can go between them very quickly, net color highlighting, pin swapping, etc. And you can do that. And when you make changes to your nets, adding some components, all of that will compile. So let me show a little video of that in action. Seems like I was having a problem with this video yesterday too. Well, we'll skip this one. Let's go to DirectX schematic rendering. So what this is going to allow you to do, it makes it a lot faster and smoother process. You're able to zoom and pan throughout the design. The larger the design, the more graphical objects, the more you can see things actually appearing. So now we can go through and so we have the graphical operations that it makes things a lot smoother. So again, I invite you to look at the mini PC design, since that's included with all installations and the example projects. You can see moving things around. Are these videos? You know, give me 1 second here. That is interesting. The videos don't play in presentation mode, but they play. Can you guys see this screen? I see some hands raising. Okay. I guess I'll show the video like this. So let's go back to dynamic compilation. We got this video right here. You see, changing the colors of the nets and getting the new net list after placing down a component. And then Active BOM opening up. And then renumbering it in a matter of seconds. So all of that information is now dynamically compiled. So you have that very quickly. Well, not even very quickly, it's instantaneously done instead of having to compile it yourself. And then dynamic, or the rendering itself. So someone says typically you have to close the PowerPoint to get the video to run. Videos don't want to run while PowerPoint is in presentation mode. I was not aware of that. That's unfortunate. Thank you for letting me know, Scott. So I guess we'll we'll go back and forth between the two. So let's go into SPI simulation. We have introduced a new SPI simulation engine. This is another thing focusing, a lot of user feedback on people want more better SPI simulation. So we have introduced this. We found it to be 4 to 7 times faster than previous releases. There's a significant increase to this accuracy, and there's better support for different mathematical functions. And once again, we have a dedicated team for simulation. So this is the first of many improvements. There's going to be a lot of development in this in time. So if you want to know more about simulation and you want to talk to us more about it, please go on Altium Live forums, talk about it, go on the idea section and let us know things you want to see. Okay, now let's talk about routing enhancements. So I mentioned earlier that routing, we are now actually leading in routing, right? So this is, we started a little poll right now on SPI simulation. So whether you need SPI simulation in your projects or not. So yeah, let us know. Any angle and arc routing. So the highlight to this is the new push and shove technology. Again, we've been working on this for several years, and I'm really excited to be able to put this in everyone's hands now. Working with this is a lot of fun. when you actually get this in your hands, it's just really exciting. So I'm really excited for all of you to actually be able to work with this. It's really easy to create and edit these traces. It's the same process, but with the new push and shove technology, it makes it a lot more fluid to actually get through things, and it glosses over. Again, you could toggle between the different routing modes with simply doing shift space. So you can easily toggle through as you're going. So this probably won't work. So let's close out here. And we have here trying to get through this BGA, and you could see as we route through, and we're actually going to take this net and gloss it and change the different type of routing. You see how it's shaped right now, and then we changed it to the arcs there. So it makes it a very smooth process. You're able to gloss any existing traces. Not everyone is aware of this, but I believe in 19 we introduced when you add new rules, it's also applying all of those rules to it. So adding new rules with this glossing technology, you can really make a lot of changes with how you after the fact, right? So after you've laid down some traces, you can do a lot of changes. So trace editing and sliding. I'm sure a lot of you have tried to move a T-junction before. As I mentioned, the glossing engine, it has been improved greatly. So now when you move things around, it's no longer going to disconnect different traces. You see here in 19, when I tried to move this T-junction, it made this little acute angle. It's not going to make these acute angles anymore, preventing right angles, preventing loops, and also, like I said, disconnects. The cool thing is when you have a T-junction, it now identifies that it's a T-junction, and you could move it all together. It identifies it, and it moves it as one piece. So it makes it really easy to slide. And in addition, with the new arc capabilities, you can slide all of that and all the free angle segments. And it makes it really easy to avoid the different obstacles while you're dragging things around. So we have this T-junction here, and you can see it avoid the vias and kind of wrap around them. And when you have the T-junction on either side, you saw that it moved both of them simultaneously. And you have these arcs here. Not only can you move the arcs, you can also change what type of routing is applied to them and gloss the affected area above it. So you saw here, it also glossed the trace above it. Area tuning. Okay, so I'm sure I'm not the only one that has had this issue before when you're kind of trying to trace something or tune something, and you've made the shape, and you need to move it around, and you have kind of an issue. So now we've made a persistent shape that you can now just drag around, and it will automatically move all of the tracing, all of the tuning for you, and still show you where the original trace was laid down. It makes it really easy to resize and the tuning, and this works for both single and differential pairs. So you can see here, really quickly making the shape, and then not only moving it, but changing the type of the style, right? So you could change the radius and the gap, of course, and the style. So all of this is aided by the fact that we have improved the glossing engine, right? So going into the new design rules, you know, we've noticed we're going more and more into higher frequency designs. There are higher density designs. We're getting into smaller enclosures. So we've been looking at increasing the ability to design in higher density boards, higher frequency boards, higher voltage boards. So one of the first things we've looked at is propagation delay tuning. This is something I'm really excited about. I come from an embedded software background, so tuning for length was a very confusing concept for me. I'm actually thinking about, or like, okay, I need this length. It means this. It was very confusing. So thinking about things in terms of time is a lot more natural for me. I'm really excited about this. We're working with a company, Siberian. The engine behind this for the trace delay calculation, we also use an engine for impedance calculations. If you have worked in Altium Designer 19, we have the impedance profiles for impedance calculations. So you can define the delay, and then you can tune accordingly. Voltage creepage rule. So this was one of the highest requested things on Bug Crunch. So 255 users might not sound like much, but like I said, one of the highest requested things. I urge you all to go on Altium Live, you know, the forums, talk on there, go on the idea section, vote on Bug Crunch. Please, this is great for high voltage designs. It's going to help you avoid leakage currents. You can see here, after you define the rule, there's not only will this help you in 2D, but it will help you in 3D. You see in this picture here, it is showing you the difference from this layer. It comes through the notch through the board, and the 3D distance to this other trace, right? So it will not only tell you the distance. Did not mean to do that. It will not only tell you the distance on the flat surface, but it will also tell you the distance in 3D, right? Which is really helpful. Here it is in action. You can see for this component just on the top side. I'll play it again. It was very quick. You can see moving the notch. It can tell you the required distance. But again, it's really important that you be able to see that information in 3D as well. Keeps going back. That's really weird. Okay. So next area, return path check. You know, we just had a couple of live trainings this week with Rick Hartley and Mike Creedon. I don't know if anyone saw that. We did a live stream on YouTube, but you know, they talked about issues where this is going to be really helpful to prevent. So checking your return path to make sure you don't have any inductive loops, right? If you don't have a proper return path for your traces, you're going to have a problem. So what this is going to do is be able to verify that you do not have a violation. It simply will check that the trace has a proper return path. So you see here on the rules and violations panel, I navigate to the violations and I see that these traces do not have a proper return path. I simply extend the polygon, and in the rules and violations panel, I rerun the single rule check, which is return path, and you see I am no longer violating that, and I am ready to go. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was just general product enhancements and improvements. There's a lot more. Again, this is just a sneak peek, so we're not talking about everything today. I want to mention again, next week, November 18th is the planned date for the routing webinar. That might change by one day, but that is the planned day right now. We'll get more in depth on all of the routing, right? So open beta is now available. If you have an active subscription, you can just go on the website and download it. If you do not have an active subscription, you can download a free trial, and the free trial license will allow you to access the open beta. So you can try that as well. From here, if you are on the open beta and you have some questions, we have an open beta section on Altium Live. So I urge you to go on there and talk to us, let us know. We're on the forums all the time. I'm the moderator of the Concord Pro forum, so if you ever have Concord Pro questions, you'll see me on there. Of course, I go on the other ones as well, but if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out, talk to us. We want to talk to you, so we're always around. From here, I'm going to open it up to questions. We want to know a little bit more about what you're interested in and everything. So I want to thank everyone for their time, and we hope you're as excited as we are. Thanks, everyone.